For being here this evening. It's 4 p.m. For Monday, November 4th, 2024, City Council work session. We'll now call the meeting to order. And will you please have a roll call, please?
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor McGee.
Present.
Councilor Novak. Councilor Newton Azor. Councilor Kupczynski.
Here.
Councilor Montague.
Here.
Mayor Johnson II.
Here. Councilor Newton Azor said that she would be virtual today, so she hasn't clocked in yet. Thank you all. Do we have any business from the public? So, thank you very much. Yes.
Okay.
We did receive a document from the public, so Councilor Smith's going to read that document now.
Yes, as soon as I find my.
Yeah. Wasn't
Hang
there, forgive me, wasn't there also a document from a gentleman who wanted his letter read?
That's what
what
she's
I'm
going to
gonna
do.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
you said Republic, and I,
From the public.
oh, from the public. Thank you.
Hang on. Now I have lost the letter. No, wait, got it. Sorry about that. To Albany City Council from Kevin Goodrich et al. Subject, community enhancement. Mayor Johnson and members of Albany City Council, good morning. The purpose of this request is to increase transparency between our municipal government and Albany citizens. The current submittal process for business from the public in written form requires 1, web access, 2, knowledge of how to convert memo documents into PDF format, 3, the ability to save the converted PDF to one's device, 4, understanding that the saved PDF file must then be retrieved, and 5, awareness of how to upload the document file via the specific page that is specific to a given meeting. Was this complex process meant to discourage communications from citizens who are wishing to communicate with their local government but don't have the means to sit during late afternoon/evening meetings? At a minimum, can there be a simple box created to accept raw characters for citizens to much more easily enter their questions as opposed to creating a document, converting it to PDF, saving it, then retrieving it to attach as an upload? We respectfully request that a text box be created to collect business from the public that allows easy access and smooth inputs from Albany's citizens to their Ward's 2 councilors prior to noon for future public meetings published on the city's calendar. We further request that the council acknowledge each written submittal during meetings by reading them aloud into the record by one of the submitter's 2 representative councilors. Taxpayers are stretched, so simplifying communication of citizens who take the time to enter written testimonies via text box will increase transparency between a more responsive Albany government and benefit its communicative submitters. We are requesting that one of our ward's councilors read this enhancement request into the record during this evening's work session, respecting the 3-minute time limit, of course, so it can be considered, discussed, and approved by the council for implementation by the city's IT department to improve transparent communication while benefiting its citizenry. Kindest regards, Kevin Goodrich et al., Ward 3, Albany, Oregon.
Thank you. Would anyone in chambers like to speak to the council? Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda, finance policies, investment risk management. Director Yeager, pages 2 through 42 in your packet.
Is this on? Oh, there we go. Okay. Good evening. Tonight we will be talking about our investment policy and our risk management policy from our investment advisors. It's government portfolio advisors. We have Deanne Woodring and Frank McDonald, and they are happy to address any questions that you might have, as well as present information on changes in the investment policy this year.
Thank you, Gina. Mayor and members of the council, it's nice to be in front of you tonight. This is our annual trip down here to Albany to meet with you for your investment policy review. ORS requires that the council review and adopt the policy. There's just one minimal change to the investment policy that we're recommending, and that is to increase the average maturity of the portfolio from a limit of 2 years to 2.5 years. The reason for this recommendation is that the portfolio is being optimized on an investment structure. We're managing your investments to about a 2.5 duration. When your liquidity balances drop like they just did into your right before tax time, that really pushes that limit. So we're just asking for a little bit of room so we're not up against that wall. It's not a substantial additional risk. It's more the strategy that we're implementing within the portfolio. So that's our recommendation. Everything else looks good.
Council, any questions, comments? Councilor Novak?
Thank you. I have 3 questions. On page 33, under equipment breakdown coverage declarations, it says $2 million ordinance or law. It's right below demolition, and I'm wondering if someone could clarify that for me.
So Counselor Novak, that is part of the risk management. This is investments.
I'm on the wrong topic?
Yes.
Is that coming after? My apologies. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you.
Councils, any other questions or comments? Counselor Newton, Azor, Counselor
Yeah,
McGee?
I just want to double check, in the agenda, it says discussion, the city's current investment policy was last reviewed and adopted on November 8th, 2024. I'm assuming that was a different date. Can I get the accurate date?
Typo.
It was last adopted, in my records, November 2023.
Thanks. We'll just have to update that for the next meeting when we adopt this or discuss to adopt.
Hey, Counselor, anything else? Counselor McGee, anything?
No.
Counselor Kopsinski? Thank you.
Okay, good to see you. Thank you.
So we will not be doing anything tonight with this until Wednesday, correct?
Correct. It will be on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next we have our insurance brokers who will be presenting tonight from WHA. We have Lauren Williams, Dave Nelson, and Jennifer King.
That's the risk report, right? The risk
This is
assessment.
the risk management report, yes.
Now you're ready.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
I believe you have a copy of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can leave the other 2 with me and I'll give them to the officers.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson and members of council. We want to start off by thanking you for inviting us to this meeting this evening and giving us the opportunity to introduce ourselves and answer any questions that you have. Our plan tonight is to cover briefly who WHA is and what WHA's risk management services look like and how those support the city's risk management goals. And then we will give a high-level update on your most recent renewal and then open it up to questions. I'll start. My name is Lauren Williams, and I am the agent of record for your property and liability policies.
I am Jennifer King. I am your agent for your workers' compensation exposures.
And I'm David Nelson. I do the risk management for public entities for WHA.
So with that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how we started with the city. WHA went into the RFP process and was selected as your agent of record effective July 1st. However, we started working with the city at the end of May to process the July 1 renewal. I'm going to kick it over to Dave to talk a little bit about our risk management program.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been with WHA for just a little over a year. I came from the carrier side, so I came from the CIS pool where I worked, and I left as the trust director. So I'm familiar with the city of Albany for the last 15 years, both from the trust side and now as you're working as your agency. One thing that drew me to WHA was the risk management program and the number of services that are provided to clients. And there's, on the brochure, I won't read them all, but towards the very front page, we have a long list of different types of things that we serve that are included in the commission that's paid to WHA. So we do everything from risk assessments, which I've already done a couple of. I went to your Cool Pool and to your the main Albany pool, and with another colleague that we did a risk assessment, provided some reports for the staff. We've been working on, we've already attended one of the executive safety committee meetings, and we are now in process of coming back up on the 21st of this month, and there's different independent department meetings that have safety committee meetings, so we'll be coming back up and doing multiple safety committee meetings on the 21st of this month. But we have a number of pieces of equipment that we use for everything from drones to thermal imaging to be able to detect any kind of risks that may be coming to your buildings. So we can fly the buildings, look for roof damage. We can look for heat. If there's an electrical panel issue, there's a number of things that we have that we're ready to go and work for the city as needed. The risk assessments have been very enlightening, where we can go in and actually look at what the city has in place, making some recommendations for the city to say, here's some things that could reduce your risk if there is a claim, a third-party claim, and also help in the event of an OSHA investigation or inspection. So if OSHA shows up, we want you to be prepared and be successful in that inspection. So a lot of our risk and recommendations are coming both from the safety and the risk side. So I'll shut up there. I can go on for a long time, but I'll turn it over to the rest of the colleagues here. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the most recent renewal. We were told early on about February is when City County Insurance Services, who is the city's carrier, we learn about what their rate increases are going to look like for the year. So this year, we were told that we would see about an 18% overall rate increase, and that doesn't include any of your exposure increases. So, for example, if you add new vehicles or new property, that you have to figure that into your rate increase as well. So one thing WHA does, which the city will see this year in February, is we send out a budget letter to help the city prepare for those increased rates that insurance that we're seeing on the insurance policy side. So this year, the city had what City County Insurance Services called the perfect storm. You did have increased exposures on the budget side, and then you added 16 officers. So those exposures caused a higher than the 18% rate increase. We were at around a 29% rate increase. So what we did is we worked with the city and looked at areas where we could find some savings and what made sense for the city. And one of those areas was deductibles on your property schedule. So when you look through these policies, your limits are all going to have stayed the same across the board. We didn't change any limits for you. However, you did have a change in your property deductible from $5,000 to $10,000, and that resulted in about a $57,000 premium savings for the city. And what we do to really analyze that and make sure it makes sense is we look at your 5-year loss history. How many claims are you having in property losses? Where will that savings over every 5 years make enough sense? And for the city, it did. And so that actually took that what would have been a 29% increase, almost cut it in half for the city to about 15% overall. And so that was the only change on the property and liability side this year from last year. So Jennifer, I'll kick it over to you for workers' compensation.
So the workers' compensation policy is currently with Safe Corporation. You guys entered into your 4th year with Safe Corporation. Prior to that, you were with CIS, the workers' comp pool there. And with the closure of the CIS workers' comp program, you moved into Safe Corporation. So just kind of talking a little bit about the most recent renewal, without going in the weeds of all of it, just kind of let you know how the city is doing. The rates have come down, but your payroll has increased. And so as your exposure goes up, your rates come down. So what we have found is that even though your payroll has increased over about $7 million over the last 4 years, we've able to actually kind of hold your workers' comp. So what goes up, one goes down. So we've been able to negotiate those. As far as your trends, you right now have a 46% loss ratio. That is inclusive of all of your claims for the city in the last 4 years. However, we have a claim in there that we call a shock loss. If we remove that shock loss, that moves you guys down into 28% loss ratio. The industry as average is targeting 25 to 35%. So when we can look at the city of Albany and say that you guys are at the 28% without a shock loss, it's very favorable we're reporting. Your frequency, your number of claims that are occurring versus what should be expected is below industry average for the state. Your time loss claims are performing better than your peers across the state. So as far as that goes, that gives us the ability to hold those rates when we come into negotiations, even though your payroll is increasing. From our perspective, what we've been very active with is coming alongside your HR team. We are in regular, would be an understatement, contact with your HR team. We do first day of notification. We do whenever there's return to work notification. We do claim closure notification. We are in very regular contact with your HR team regarding that. The second priority for us has been you had some claims that were still open from the CIS pool. They were moved to a third-party administrator when that pool closed. And we have been very aggressive in the last 3 months with meetings with them. We have all those claims now closed except for one. So that was one of our targets, is getting those kind of wrapped up for you guys and put to bed. And then the last piece for us moving forward is presumption claims, which is a scary word in workers' comp. And there's some laws have passed about workers' comp claims that are due to first responders. With the city having both fire and law enforcement exposures, you are at risk for presumption claims. When we talk about presumption, the quick is going to be a PTSD claim or a cancer claim. So right now what we're working with is our preventative measures and things that our agency has in force, and working with your fire and law enforcement to kind of mitigate those exposures before those claims can occur.
Council, any questions? Councilor Novak?
Yes, now that it's the right time. So on page 33, it's a center, if you're looking at the hard copy, the very center of the folder. It's right below demolition. It says ordinance or law, $2 million, and I'm wondering if I could get some clarification on that.
Yeah, so ordinance and law coverage typically means that if you have a loss and in order to rebuild, there's new laws in place that we require, like maybe a seismic upgrade or some type of ordinance or law that's in place that requires more than what you have listed as the equipment breakdown coverage, you have an additional coverage there to pay for those expenses.
Okay, well, I guess that's a good thing. On page 37, it says employer's liability insurance, bodily injury or disease, $3 million each employee. I'm just curious how, it's not that the city's liable if an employee gets cancer, for instance, but if an employee gets cancer, the city insurance covers them for $3 million?
So that is the workers' compensation. It has two parts to it. The workers' compensation that we know and we're familiar with, which pays your time loss, your medical, your disability. There is no cap on workers' compensation. So I can have a $3.5 million claim, a $7 million claim, and at no time will we hit a cap and roll those expenses back to the city. The second part of a workers' comp in here is a secondary coverage called employer's liability. And essentially it is a safety net that should somebody want to pursue the city for an act of negligence that may have been involved in a workers' compensation claim, or pursue the city for liability, maybe from a loss of relationship or consortium from an injured worker and the family surrounding them, and they come to the city with a lawsuit for that, your liability portion, it would actually fall under this piece of the policy. So this piece of the policy is not made for your injured workers, it's made for somebody around it. What I will tell you is workers' compensation is considered exclusive remedy which means it covers injuries regardless of who's at fault and who's at liable. So in this realm, there have been, from our understanding with your carrier, less than 12 claims pursued in the state of Oregon in the last 10 years. And that's traditionally because the claims are thrown out of court because they've already had full disclosure through the workers' comp system. But that doesn't mean just because somebody isn't going to win in court, doesn't mean that they're not going to have a piece of paper and try to take you to court. So if this lawsuit, employer's liability, was found against the city, it would be turned over to Safe Corporation to mitigate. And if they lost, they would pay up to $3 million after defense, or on top of defense costs. So the state statute is 500. All public entities recommend starting with $1 million. Right now, the city is covering $3 million. But it really is a safety net should somebody bring suit against you, even though they've already reclaimed through the exclusive remedy portion of the workers' comp policy.
Okay, so it has to do with lawsuits more than if an employee of the city gets
Absolutely.
disease
Yeah,
or
it's
gets injured.
workers' comp has two parts to it. So it's the workers' comp, and
Okay.
there truly is no limit. Statutorily wise, if you have a young officer that was injured and we have lifelong care and lifelong spousal and family support, we absolutely pay that without any of it coming back. It is a safety net should the suit be brought against
All
the
right,
city.
thank you for that. My final question was from page 39. Total premium, there were a lot of large numbers listed, and I'm like, which one is the total premium? I couldn't really,
On the very
amount of money that we're paying totally for the city.
is $774,329 is what your estimated is. And that's based on estimated payroll, and then we audit at the end of the year for actual.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Kupczynski?
Yeah, yes, just I'm wondering if there's a connection I see on the one page for property coverage declarations. It says restoration/reproduction of books, records, electronic data restoration, reproduction. Is any of this any way connected to, on the following several pages, the cybersecurity coverage declarations, or is this two totally separate? So if we had our system was breached and we got a ransom, one of those types of things, heaven forbid, hopefully we're covered under the cybersecurity, but having to restore all of that then falls into a different category?
No, it's going to be based on the cause of loss. So if the cause of loss is a cyber event, then we would be looking at the cyber policy or cyber coverage for that. The property coverage has a separate, so this might be fire, storm damage, something
Okay,
along those lines.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Newton-Azor?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, though.
Counselor McGee?
I'm just on camera.
No, thanks. I have no questions. Thank you.
Counselor Montague? Counselor Smith?
I had a question about the shock loss. Was that the street sweeper accident? Apparently,
Yes.
Did I ask a forbidden question?
No, I always just use a little bit of caution on being public, but yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Insurance agent, so I gotta be careful when I answer questions too. Okay, since there's nothing else, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on tonight's agenda, the Republic Service rate increase. Julie Jackson, page 43 to 51 in your packet.
Good evening or afternoon or wherever we are on this day after the day we changed the clock. I am here today with an annual presentation to you about a proposed rate increase. This year, the rate increase is 3.2%. It is, when we calculated this, I think you have all the documents. When we calculate it, we go June 30th, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and CPI at that time was 3.3%. So we're just about 1% or 1 point under what CPI is. So I think that's a good moderated number. I'll remind you that this rate increase was pretty high during COVID. And one of the things I wanted to point out was that the fluctuation in this rate increase and in the calculation for Albany is largely due to fuel cost. So when fuel goes way up, that can raise it a lot. When fuel comes way down, you get a much bigger decrease than some of the communities that don't have fuel within the calculation. So that was just one thing to point out to you. Councilor Montague asked me to look at a 5-year total for rate increases. So I did send that to her, and I can send it out to all of you. But I will tell you that the 5-year average, 2020 through 2024, is 3.12%. And that includes a 9% increase in 2023, which was COVID-related. That increase actually calculated to 13.4%, but we felt that was too high and asked for 9% that year instead. So the prior 5-year period, I just, out of curiosity, went back and ran the 5-year period prior to that, and the average was 2.42%, which I think compared to the years of COVID is actually almost pretty not too bad compared during the COVID years. So that's where we are with that. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them, and then I have a couple other things, if you don't mind, too.
Councilors, Councilor Montague?
First off, thank you for sending over that information. That was helpful. I can forward that to everybody if I need to. Also, just a request, can you please include that information going forward?
Sure.
So that we have just like historical information?
Absolutely. We can put a table in there.
Yeah,
No
that'd be
problem. Would you like 5 years,
fantastic.
10 years?
Yeah, I think 5 is
5 is
a
good.
good, yeah, just so we can kind of see how does this compare to the, historic requests.
Like a
for-
5-year rolling, so you drop
Yeah.
off, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Easy to do. Thanks. That's a great request.
Councilor Novak?
Thank you. I think I read that you said this comes to like an average of 95 cents per customer?
Correct.
Residential customer.
Yes.
I'm curious as to how it would impact a small business like a restaurant, which has.
Well,
a
it would
bigger-
be 3.2% higher than, if all things are the same, it would be 3.2% higher than the previous year.
So it applies exactly the same to
Exactly the
businesses
same.
as to residences? Okay,
does,
that's good to
yes.
know. Thank you. Can you remind me what a pass-through is? I saw lots of that on the charts on page 49, and I don't know what that is referring to.
A pass-through expense? Do you mean, on the rate sheets? You were looking at the rate sheets. A pass-through would be, so if you order a big drop box for a roofing project, for example, we charge you a daily rental fee and we charge a haul fee, but the pass-through is the disposal at Coffin Butte. So if that box is not very full and it doesn't weigh very much, you'd pay less than if that box were full to the brim and was very heavy. You pay by the ton, and that's the pass-through.
Okay, thank you. And were you going to be presenting information about the Recycling Modernization Act?
Sure.
Where we have the.
Sure, I can tell you
Because I
where
didn't
we
want
are.
to jump the gun
Wait,
on any
let's get the
comments
other-
about that.
Let's finish the other councilors up, and then we'll go to that.
Yeah, I just was asking.
Thank you. Councilor Newton Azar, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was actually curious about a low-income program.
I'm sorry,
I'm not
what, I
sure.
didn't hear that.
Is there a low-income program, or is that bundled with any
There is.
partners?
And she set that up a while back.
There is a low-income program. We set that up, and I should have put that
How
number.
many,
I think it was July.
Customers are utilizing it?
You know what? I don't have that number with me, and I just saw that report recently, so I'll send that to you as well. And that program, if you remember, we work with the city. We get a list from the city of those customers who have been placed on the city's low-income program. We don't really have the means to vet customers in that way, and it goes through the Community Services Consortium. So if a person is eligible for energy assistance or the city's low-income water and sewer rates, then they would be eligible for us as well. One caveat on that, we do ask that they have a small cart. We ask that they not have the largest cart and get a discount. So, we've been doing that, and we're working out the kinks of how to make sure that we get those all done correctly, but I think it's been working pretty well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
I just want to point out that on page 47, highlighted in orange, it shows 32 gallon with income assistance discount. So it shows the rates right there.
Thank you.
Counselor McGee, do you have anything?
No.
Thank you. Counselor Kopsinski. I had a question. Have you seen an increase in the volume of the refuse since the end of COVID or the quasi-end of COVID?
We haven't seen, well, in general, people are making more waste per capita in Oregon than ever before. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, there are just more people here in town. But actually, we, as a state, we look at it per capita. And Lynn County is no different than Benton County or Marion County. We're making more waste per person every year. And I think a lot of that has to do with packaging, and it's a really great segue into the Recycling Modernization Act because it is all about packaging. You've heard me talk about this for several years, but now we are really going to see the results begin in July 2025. That's when it goes into effect. Now, it's going to take a little while, we think, to ramp up, but what you will see July 2025 is a new list of what can be recycled. And packaging is really the focal point for that material. So you'll see some new plastics specifically and a couple other things that can go in your commingled cart at the curb. Now, one of the things that we always say is if people are vigilant about recycling and doing a good job, and you can take something that was in your trash and put it in your recycle cart, that's probably a good thing for you. Some people might even be able to downsize their garbage cart and save money by doing that. So we think that's a good thing for folks, a really good thing for folks. The other piece of it is that we're really working with the state to recycle more plastics. And plastics, as you know, take a lot of resources, and not very many plastics within the state are being recycled. In the country, I should say, really, because Oregon is doing a good job compared to many, many places. So you'll see a new list of what can be recycled. You'll see some new materials that can be recycled at the depot. So you should be able to recycle styrofoam at the depot now. It's a difficult, we have to figure out how we do that and where we do that because it's a tough material. You should be able to recycle plastic film, which is kind of the industry term, but we would call that plastic bags. Any kind of plastic that you can put your thumb in and it stretches is plastic film. If it's that kind of crispy plastic that you can't stretch when you poke your thumb into it, then that's not plastic film. And that's just a good rule of thumb to remember. There'll be more metals that you can recycle. You will be able to put larger metal items in your cart. So they're saying pots and pans. If you have, a teenage child who burned the bottom of a pan irreparably, you will be able to put that in your cycle cart. So there'll be a lot more materials that can go in. We're really excited about it. We're working with CAA, which is the Circular Action Alliance, which is the organization hired by Oregon DEQ to administer the program. They are the PRO, you've heard me say that before, which is the Producer Responsibility Organization. So in July, anybody who produces packaging in Oregon will be paying into this Producer Responsibility Organization, and that's where the funds come from to increase and modernize the program. So it's really exciting. There are a million balls in the air. We're still trying to figure out how it works, but we are staying on top of it and working with the city, both the city of Albany and Lynn County on some surveys sent out by another group called ORSOP. There are a lot of letters involved, and you'll hear me talk about things that make no sense, but we'll stay on top of it. We'll get you there.
Counselor Novak.
It's not a question so much as a comment. In reading through this, there are things about it that sound great, but I'm a little concerned because whenever you have more bureaucracy and more regulation, the cost of everything skyrockets. And with the PROs, they're going to pass the cost down.
Sure.
And all the costs of everything are going to go up as a result of this. The other concern that I have with recycling evermore, and they call it responsible recycling, but I don't know how many of you in here are aware of the fact that microplastics are in a lot of your clothing, and that is not good. That is not good for you at all. I just as soon not recycle more if their idea of responsible recycling is that the clothing I'm wearing is going to be physically harmful, which I'm aware of many things out there, even synthetics that have been around for quite a while, like rayon, polyester, nylon, not good. 100% cotton, which you can hardly find anywhere anymore. That's the sort of stuff. Linen, which used to be used in hospitals all the time because of its healing properties, hasn't been used in a hospital forever. Now, if you're in a hospital, they put you on a plastic sheet. Plastic is not good for the human body. So if you have any input with these responsible recycling folks, and I assume you would you please share these concerns? I speak for a lot of people when I say to you, I don't want more microplastics in my clothing or anything that can come near my physical self, including, I don't know if the water that you buy in a gallon water jug, if the plastic in that jug is leaching into the water. I know they have different grades of plastic, but these are really strong concerns. Between that and I know the costs that are going to increase markedly as a result of this good thing that they're trying to do. There are always these unintended consequences, but some things like this I tend to see from half a mile away. So I want to make others aware that you're looking at this and going, yippee, but there are going to be some downsides, and if there's any way to mitigate any of it, please see what you can do.
Well, I will say that microplastics in clothing, I think, are not the greatest concern. I think microplastics in your food and your water is the greatest concern. And here's what you can do about that. First of all, you don't ever heat anything in plastic, ever. Secondly, don't buy plastic. Use glass storage containers. It's sort of a conscious effort that we all have to make personally to stop some of those microplastics and from harming ourselves personally. But the third thing that I would ask is that when you're putting material in your yard debris cart, please don't include plastic. The biggest source of contamination at our compost facility is plastic bags. And people still want to put plastic. And I can tell you that a compostable plastic bag, and I use that term loosely, is still plastic. Chemically, it's still a plastic, and it still creates microplastic that can go into the soil and can be absorbed by the plants that grow food. So for us, locally, there's some things we can't do and some things we can do, but we can continue to advocate for people to leave plastic out of the compost because that's not a healthy situation. And that's really probably far more important.
The reason I mentioned the clothing is because people are not as aware of that. I listened to a panel of designers not long ago talking about material in some very popular, like ladies working out in Lululemon yoga pants. If you're wearing yoga pants, I just want to say it's in a lot of materials and people should be aware.
Thank you. Counselor Smith, do you have something?
It's time for my history lesson.
Yikes.
Albany was, if not the first, one of the first cities in the state of Oregon to offer curbside recycling as part of
Second.
Was it the second?
Second, yep.
Thank you. And I've been doing it ever since. It's been interesting to go through all the iterations of what goes in which box, and then it all goes in one box, and the more we can put in that big tan cart, the happier I am.
Well, and I will give you, Albany was the first to have the eco-activists. There was a teacher at Kalapuya Middle School who started the eco-activists. He created a recycling depot, and as far as I know, they were the first city, Albany was the first city in the state to have a recycling program. It wasn't curbside, but you could bring material to this depot. And I have a lot of stories about this teacher. I was in middle school shortly after that. And then Corvallis became the first city to have curbside recycling, and Albany was just within a month or so behind.
Thank you.
So
Councilor
lots of
Newton-
good beginnings.
Councilor Newton Azor?
No, that's all just exciting stuff. I didn't know that about being the first city to have a recycling center, or that's just very cool.
And it was all run by students, he and his students, I should say, too. And it burned, and then Albany Lebanon Sanitation purchased it and partnered with them, and that's when curbside recycling started.
That is so cool.
I'm old, so I know that.
No.
Thanks for sharing.
Councilor McGee,
Yeah.
Councilor Kopsinski. Thank you very much, Julie.
Can I remind you of one other thing? Because Gina told me that a citizen is curious about leaf collection. I will just remind you that it is leaf collection season. If you received a calendar in the mail or by an email at the end of the year last year, you'll be receiving one in December for 2025 with those dates on it. Those dates are on our website. Our local website is republicservices.com/Albany, capital O, capital R. And you can get right to the local website and get all of the calendar events. There's also an ad in the newspaper. So if you want to know when those are, that's great. The one thing I will tell you is that we publish a calendar, but for example, the very first go-round, we do 3 go-rounds around the city. The very first go-round only took a week because there weren't so many leaves out and so many down. I can tell you that the 3rd go-round will take much longer. So we can't tell you exactly where we're going to be within that schedule, but we can tell you when the schedule is. So have your leaves out, put them in neat row. We encourage you to put them in the yard debris cart first and foremost, because that's the easiest and tidiest way, and leaves don't get in the storm drains. But if you have additional leaves that you can't get in your cart, then they should be in rows. They should be about 1 foot from the curb. They should be far back from storm drains so that we keep them out of the storm drains.
Thank you very much for your report.
Thanks.
Next on tonight's agenda is Housing Implementation Plan Policy Discussion with Beth Freelander, page 52 to 57 of your packet. And Catlin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to share my screen, hopefully successfully.
Right, Joe.
Catching up to what there we go. So again, I'm Beth Freelander, planner with the City of Albany, and I'm here to provide kind of a update on where we're at with our policy proposals. We came to you just over a month ago with these proposals and got your feedback, and then we've incorporated the input that we received from council. So I just want to update you on how we've incorporated that input and kind of get the go-ahead. We're hoping that this will be the last work session that we come to, and then we can proceed with a public hearing and moving towards adoption. So sort of a last chance to make sure that we're in line with what we have heard from council. So first, the construction excise tax. The tax rate for residential and commercial is based on what we heard from council, as well as the exemption for construction that's under $50,000 permit value. So kind of smaller scale, like addition or, improvements on a house or something like that. And then we're still recommending that the Community Development Commission will make program recommendations, and then in subsequent years will allocate funding kind of according to the program recommendations that they've made. The program recommendations will come to council for your review, so you can sign off on making sure that those are aligned with what the city priorities are. And then there'll be a 60-year affordability period for most projects. Most projects will be affordable for residents 80% or less than the area median income. You may notice, though, in the policy language, we did broaden that a little bit to go up to 120% of the area median income, because we know that there's some flexibility with the commercial and industrial CET revenue, that it can go towards more needed housing types. And so we didn't want to limit ourselves to only 80% if there were projects that might be great workforce housing projects that are also needed in Albany. Again, the bulk of the revenue would still go towards affordable for 80% or below, but just giving us that option so that we're not limiting ourselves kind of preemptively. And so then the next steps for that is to amend the Albany Municipal Code by ordinance to allow us to do this, and then set the tax rate and kind of the details by resolution. So first, we kind of want to make sure that everything that we've heard here, oh, and I also wanted to add that we did add a reporting requirement, that upon completion that they'll report on the outcomes of the project. So knowing that, does it sound like the policy details are aligned with what council desires for this policy?
Counselor Smith, you have something?
The letter that we received today from
Yes.
the Western Oregon Builders Association, I think that we've addressed the primary concern with costs associated with, well, we've addressed it by eliminating a CET on permits that are under $50,000. That covers a lot of territory. And in the realm of affordability, we're looking at keeping costs down for people who can't pay higher costs. Am I getting that right?
Yes. I just wanted to add that he references an SDC deferral program.
Yes.
That is something happening on a separate tract that Matthew will bring forward. It's just a municipal code amendment to do that. It's really not part of this package, but it's absolutely something that we've heard within the community would be beneficial and that we're moving forward with. And then the other piece is just a reminder that about a year or so ago, Public Works came to you with a change in the methodology for residential development to scale the SDC fees to basically house size and house types. So that's for, our SDCs, not just for water, sewer, but also transportation and parks. So we have been trying to listen and hear about these concerns with fees and trying to reduce them or scale them to the development size.
Thanks for mentioning that. I had forgotten about that part of the letter. But,
Yep.
yeah.
Counselor Novak?
I have a question regarding the $50,000, if the permit is $50,000 or less. You can't build a house for $50,000. How is that helpful?
It would be more for like if someone's doing a major renovation on their home that required a permit, and that valuation might be less than $50,000.
Okay, and they would not
brand
have
new
to pay
house.
the CET.
Right.
And it could be for commercial construction too. I mean, this would be a 50,000 exemption across the board unless you only wanted it to apply to residential.
The $50,000 is the permit fees rather
Right.
than the value of the
Okay.
expense of building the whole thing.
It's the value of the, improvements value over 50,000. So it's not the permit is that much, it's the value. So yes, correct, Councilor
The
Novak.
value of the
We're
building,
talking
that's what I
about,
thought.
additions or modifications or replumbing or wiring or something like that. So the intent is to really capture to capture new development and then larger improvements such as additions to structures.
Counselor Kopsinski? Counselor Newton Azor?
I'm good.
Counselor McGee?
Nope, just glad you guys added the reporting update. That's going to be good.
Counselor Montague? Thank you very much.
I have a question regarding the CET that I had written down that I kind of missed. There's a line in there that says residential housing that is guaranteed to be affordable will be exempt. How can any housing be guaranteed to be affordable when the federal government controls mortgage rates, mortgage interest rates, and things that are completely out of the control of?
Yeah, so that would apply to like subsidized housing that they're intentionally ensuring that their rents are below, they're affordable to like 80% or below the area median income. So those are like the housing that we'll talk about with the low-income housing, rental housing, tax exemption, like projects that would be eligible for that.
Yeah, and it's outlined in state law what the requirements are, and so it's very clear in state law and what they have to do to ensure that affordability period. And then we'll note that in any of these programs, if there's any default, then we are looking at ceasing the program and in some cases getting money back.
So then just the next question with the CET is when would you like it to go into effect? What should be kind of our timeline for it's starting.
What is your recommendation?
Well, so we're able to come to you at your December 11th regular meeting with the ordinances and resolutions for whatever items you want to move forward tonight. And so you could decide sometime next year, and it's really up to you. You know, it's going to take a good year or two to build up revenue and work on program priorities before any money gets spent, but it's really up to you. And we just wanted to know so that we could put that into the documents we bring forward.
You mentioned.
Counselor Montague?
Well, in my opinion, we are in need of this money as soon as possible. So I think that we should try to implement this as soon as possible because there is a great need out there. And the sooner we can help with that, the better.
Counselor Novak?
Well, I have some concerns about all of these. The LIRHT, we always talk about how growth should pay for itself. I'm concerned that if certain housing is getting a 20-year tax exemption, somebody else is going to be bearing that burden. I know they're trying to do a good thing, but again, I see this a lot. When you look, in an attempt to do something good, it can sometimes have a lot of consequences that are maybe not being considered, and somebody always pays. I just don't want to see burdens being shifted onto people who are completely overburdened.
I did want to mention that this would not exempt any of the development types that are exempt by state law from the CET from paying SDC fees and other things that actually help pay for needs based on development. So the exemptions listed here, except for the recommendation for improvements over 50,000, they're all in state law. So it's just, we're collecting the SDC fees and other fees from them. So, and sometimes property taxes too, because not all these are, very few of these may end up being exempt from property taxes.
So what's the next thing we're going to talk about? The low-income?
Yeah, the next program is the low-income rental housing tax exemption program.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So again, we're recommending that you adopt this low-income rental housing tax exemption program, including any housing developments that meet the affordability requirements, regardless of whether or not they're for-profit or nonprofit agencies. And then we also did add a annual reporting requirement to demonstrate continued compliance with the affordability requirements. Initially, we had recommended that this replace the program that this city currently has that's just for nonprofits. In looking at that program, it does give some nonprofits some more flexibility about what kinds of projects they could get the tax exemption for, which includes homeowner programs, which this does not. And so we're recommending that we keep that program and add this program so that nonprofits have the greatest amount of flexibility. They can obviously only get the tax exemption from one program, so there's no worry about duplicating benefit. That program is set to sunset in 2027, so that is part of why we want to have this other program, available, because we don't want to lose a tool that helps affordability. But right now, we're just recommending that this be another option for low-income housing tax exemption. And I will say that one of the questions that we got last council was whether or not we could reduce or scale the exemption period according to what benefits the project brings. Unfortunately, the state regulation does just stipulate a flat 20-year tax exemption, so it doesn't give us flexibility on that.
Next.
So for the surplus land, city-owned surplus land policy, we added a stipulation that the council can make an exception from following this procedure of checking to see if this property is suitable for housing and then reaching out and getting proposals from housing developers and making a good faith negotiation with housing developers if a higher priority need for that property has already been identified. I think we can all agree we don't want to waste anyone's time. If a property is already, has a clear need and priority that can be fulfilled by that, we're not going to advocate that we make everyone jump through hoops to only have that same end result. But in the case where that a higher priority need has not been identified, that then we go through this process of screening for housing and getting housing development proposals, and then potentially negotiating if there's a proposal that's warrants that.
It wouldn't be much of a change from what you're doing now, but we do the pre-screening for you so that when we come to you or a department comes to you to declare something surplus, that's already been done, and then that might save a little bit of time and allow you the chance to provide any specific input if we need to go out for something that we want them to put into their application. And it would also allow us to try to keep those that are looking for property for housing in mind, and especially our affordable housing developers, which are both for-profit and nonprofit. Questions about that one?
Council?
No? Okay.
Thank you. So I'm giving a thumbs up personally.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I mean, we were thinking we would come to you next year, but we're like, gosh, we have all the everything we need to move forward sooner, and that way all of you that have been involved in this, will be here to vote on that. And so we will schedule that for December 11th before the holidays. And then we'll look at an effective date. I mean, there's, an ordinance takes a while to become effective, but maybe we could look at what is the earliest date based on, the anticipated second reading of the ordinance, or pick a date in February or something like that.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So is this the final opportunity before reading of ordinances
No,
to
December
discuss?
11th. December 11th.
Yeah, I caught that you said December, but I just wanted to,
December
okay.
11th.
If it's going to be back on in December, then I'll save this thought for that time.
And it'll be a public hearing, so we'll have the public hearings on these tools so that we'll give a chance for the public to weigh in, and we'll also be doing outreach, letting people know and sending you any comments we receive, so.
Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda, municipal court judge contract. Gina Yeager, page 58 to 63, your packet. It's informational. Judge?
Good evening again. Tonight we have the judge's contract before you. We renew it every year, and normally we just increase it by the COLAs that the city's non-bargainers get. This year, we're actually coming to you with an increase. Because of the red light citations that we are expecting, which is going to be about 19,000 additional citations in a year, we need the judge to be here more than the 10 hours a week that she was originally contracted for. This contract would put her hours at 15 hours a week, and with the, an increase to reflect that, in addition to the COLAs that non-bargaining staff will get. Everything should be in the packet. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Go ahead, Councilor Montague.
You answered my question. I was wondering why they increased, so thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Hey, Councilor Nazar, do you have anything?
I'll bring it up later. It was regarding the municipal court, but not this contract, so I'll just bring it up later.
Councilor McGee. I've been up since 5 a.m. Stop. Councilor McGee, you have anything? Councilor McGee?
I'm sorry, the thing froze. No, I don't.
Thank you. Councilor Kopsinski? Councilor Smith? I was wondering how we're going to do that. 19,000 extra tickets or more tickets, plus including your current workload, plus all the high school kids will be learning to drive this summer. So my thumbs are up. We can bring this back. I'm comfortable with that.
This should be coming back on Wednesday's
Oh, it is? Okay.
agenda,
perfect.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda?
I don't remember, but I think it is.
When was the last time we heard from the court?
So Judge Meyer will be presenting, you know how every January you hear from directors?
Okay.
We plan on having her
Oh, perfect.
talk about the court at that point.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted to know.
Looking forward to it, yeah. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is albanYoregon.gov, contract amendment, Director Ledane, 64 through 81 of your packet. And your costume was awesome. I think Kayla had you a little bit, but it was awesome. And the judge, the Adams family was pretty awesome too.
Oh. Thank you very much. My one that I submitted on Thursday, I'm even more proud about, so you can check out the link on that one. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Just a fun fact, I had a little bit of dental work done earlier today, so I'm not fully 100% not numbed. So if I'm making faces, it's not you, it's me. So just wanted to set that up ahead of time. So I'm here today to talk about asset management software. So back in 2008, our Public Works Department started using Cartograph, which is now albanYoregon.gov, to help track all of the things that make up our water and public maintenance system. I listed some of them based on their previous memo. We need to start doing this in parks and recreation, as with over 900 acres, 33 parks, 26 playgrounds, it would be really helpful for us to know exactly what parts are out there, when the last time they were serviced, when we need to put bark mulch. At this point, we've been taking care of all of that, but it's in a lot of our staff's heads and in spreadsheets. And as we look for planning the next phase, we have retirements coming up, and they're not allowed to retire until they put all of that information into an asset management software. So a few folks are hoping that you will give us a green light on this, as that makes their lives a little bit better. So instead of going out and they have an existing contract, so we've met with albanYoregon.gov, and for us to add the Parks and Recreation module as an additional $24,000, almost $29,000 annually, there is a one-time setup fee for somebody to come out here, import all of our nuts, bolts, sprinkler heads, playground, swing tires, all that kind of good stuff into the system. So we are asking that council by a motion allow that original contract that is Public Works to increase by approximately $61,000 to support this addition. This will be, we didn't have this budgeted, but we do have some additional money in our park maintenance and operations that we had rolled over from the last budget season that, things break. So we are gonna be reallocating. Not ideal, but you know what? This is actually really needed, and it's a priority as we move forward. So this will be coming back on the consent calendar on Wednesday night, but I just wanted to get ahead of you all and see if you have any questions.
Counselor Novak?
I do, yes. On page 65, it shows a one-time cost of $25,000 for implementation, but this is $36,335. I'm also curious because page 65 doesn't list the $2,400 travel expenses for the two-day visit that is part of your package. Is that going to be on the city?
No, well, we're paying for it, but it's included in that $36,000. That's the estimate for the total one-time implementation,
Okay.
but they'll bill us back the actuals. They essentially assume it's gonna be about $2,000, but they won't know what exact airfare. If we can work out a special deal in a hotel, they'll charge us actuals for that.
Okay, and I did note that it said that the travel is billed quarterly, so do you expect, is part of the contract that they come out after? No?
It's
Okay.
just one.
I did notice also that a lot of the work, it's basically 2 days on-site and up to, not necessarily, 36 hours remote training, and I just want to say, this might be a great deal, but to me, it looks like a lot of money. $61,000 for 36 hours remote and 2 days, and like I say, I don't know, because I've never compared this sort of thing before. Maybe it's a steal, but let me see. Oh yeah, I had a question about the statement of work having an expiration date. Is that like a contract for a job where if you take them up on the offer, it's good from here to here? And, okay, thank you, because at first that didn't make sense, and then I thought it might be like that. Let me see if I had any other questions. Savings with regard to taking this action. I mean, we're spending over 61,000. Is this going to save financially?
It will. At this point, I can't put a number on it, but like I said, at one point, we had 4 staff members that between them had 100 years of not only municipal experience, but City of Albany experience. One of them is already retired. The others are looking at the next 3 years. So while their systems that they're currently working at are great and work for them, it'll be an incredible loss for the city in time, efficiency, and just knowledge if we're not able to transition to something that's more streamlined. So if we don't do this now, we're not doing ourselves any favors. So,
Okay, are you the project manager for this, or is that Peter?
I believe it's me.
Is she correct, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, it's a collaborative effort with IT and Public Works, which is already using Cartograph. So if you think about this, like when you take your car in for maintenance, if your mechanic was just going to do what they thought at the moment needed to be done, that's far less efficient and far less effective than having a database which helps you to manage the maintenance of that particular
Right, I'm
asset.
hoping there will be savings. That's why I asked.
Additionally, we'll be able to look at hotspots. At this point, we know anecdotally from our staff where they spend most of their time, but we'll actually be able to run reports to say the slide at Kinder Park in the last 5 years has taken X amount of staff time. We'll be able to drill down to that specific detail, which we haven't been able to. So I would like to say we're really excited about it. New technology is scary for everybody. So that's why we're actually really, that's why we are working with them for the one-time install, because in all honesty, if we had to do it on our own, this would not be doable because we don't have the staffing and the resources.
This is my final question on this one. Because you're annually going to be paying nearly $25,000 to keep this system, you need to be, it needs to be saving you at least $25,000 to break even. Do we know that much? Do we know?
I'm not able to put a number on it, but I can say that it'll be worth the $25,000 just in efficiency and having information streamlined into one area.
Okay.
So I know that's not necessarily, I wish that I could have a specific number. If we had a system like Cartograph in place, I might be able to say that.
Cartograph is what it was. It changed to OpenGov
Yes.
in 22.
Had we had an asset management software, I might
I
be
see
able
what
to
you're
tell you what that looks like. But at this point, it's a series of spreadsheets and tracking documents that, like I said, are maintained and our staff are on top of it. But it's just different when it's not in one central location and we're missing some opportunities for efficiency.
It's woefully inefficient. Yeah, papers. Thank you. Councilor Montague?
I finally get to say this as somebody who does this for a living. That, I'll tell you, that is a fantastic price. I'm very excited about this project. You already answered a couple of my questions. I was going to ask, how are you currently tracking? I was guessing spreadsheets. And then what does it track? It sounds like it tracks quite a few things, and that's super helpful. And then I also wanted to know what your estimated time savings is, but I will tell you, as somebody who tries to get estimated time savings from users all the time, they're not great at estimating the time it takes to do their process. So I understand where you're coming from. But I have a couple more questions. In our previous experience with this company, were there a lot of missed deliveries, deliverables, or did we run over budget when we did the original projects with them? Do you know? Does anybody know?
I can talk a little bit about it because we have brought in Public Works when we've met with OpenGov to talk about the integration. We didn't want it to be siloed because we're joining their contract. I know they've moved into the cloud recently, and so there's that conversion, which is not, I think, November. Oh my gosh, it's November. Sometime this month, I believe it's supposed to be converted, but there wasn't anything that was like a glitch that was like, hey, we're not sure of this provider, we're thinking about getting out. Additionally, the full contract goes up to either another sole source opportunity or out to rebid at the end of December 2025. So if there are any major issues, the whole system for asset management will be going back out to bid and will be a part of that process. But from what I understand and from what I've gathered, it's a solid system that is working really well, and that there aren't any major red flags.
Okay, and
Or
then,
red flags.
thank you. And then I saw in there that you're only allowed up to 20 preventative maintenance plans. Is that just for parks?
I believe so.
And is that just the preventative maintenance plans that they're initially going to help you load and that you could load later more than 20? The system allows for more than 20?
And we're going to be working within the licensing that is existing within Public Works because they haven't maxed theirs out. And so there are opportunities that have, we need to come back from where it is kind of a little bit a la carte. But based on what we're going in, we feel like that's a good amount. And IT has been really wonderful. Sean and Luke Cotton have sat in on the meetings and asked all the technical questions that I am not as savvy on.
So, and then it also said only 25 facilities, so I'm assuming that means they're going to help you load the 25, but you have the ability to add more than that. I just want to make sure we're allowing for growth. in there. Okay.
So it's scalable, as Charlene's?
Yeah.
It's scalable, okay.
Yeah, that's what I read in there. Okay. That
Counselor Smith?
is all I had.
Kropczynski? Counselor McGee?
No.
Counselor Newton-Azar?
I'm good.
I'm good as well. Can you bring this back to us?
Sure, it'll be on consent calendar on Wednesday, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is business from the council. Counselor McGee?
I have nothing.
Counselor Newton-Azar?
Just a reminder to vote.
Counselor Novak?
I have been hearing from a lot of folks about the street maintenance fee, and I have a thought that's pretty far outside the box, but I'm wondering if this is something the city could consider. There are folks who are strapped, and there are folks who are comfortable financially, and even some who are well off. If we have a dedicated fund for street maintenance, I'm wondering if there is a way that the city could consider letting those who are really well off donate to that fund. And if perhaps there are people who maybe they don't live in Albany, but they work in Albany and they use our streets, and maybe they want to contribute. If we could do that, I think it would be great, and maybe it could defray to some degree. I know you say that there are discounts for low-income folks. Some of those things are like 35 cents, $4.50. I said 35 cents because my parents used to get a discount of 35 cents on a bill, which I'm sure they were most grateful for. But this occurred to me, and I'm putting it out there because I know there are people. I've spoken to one yesterday who is well off, and he said, $16, pfft, that's nothing. And to a lot of other folks, it's not nothing. So if there's a way that we could put something out there to the people of Albany and surrounding areas who could afford to contribute to the maintenance of our roads and would happily do so, those people do exist. I would like to take them up on their kind offer or let them know that that's something the city of Albany would even consider. Please, thank you.
Counselor Montague?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Smith?
Two things. When we discussed, at the end of our break, we discussed briefly a request from the residents of Lynn Avenue and Willamette Avenue vacating the unused easement that runs between Lynn and Willamette, but didn't give any direction to the staff, and had a question about what we want to do about that. We need to let them know if they should be pursuing a city application to start that easement process, or if we want the residents to do it. It costs them money. So that's question number one.
Yeah, I'll
mention that to Matthew tomorrow, but most likely, if the city's on board with doing it, then the city would be the applicant. And it would be a lot smoother that way to go through, so.
Thank you. Number 2, there is no $16 street maintenance fee. And the other part of that is that it's an interesting suggestion that people who might want to donate to the fund could do that. That would be something to consider for estate planning or just out of the kindness of their hearts. Not a bad idea.
I have nothing this evening. I'm tired. Oh, Counselor Kopczynski.
Yes, I'd like to give a big shout out to city staff for coming up with and getting the information to, using the template from LOC on the transportation priorities list. It's a two-pager that we got in the Friday report from the city manager. Absolutely wonderful with all the information on it. No, it's not absolutely drilling down deep into the weeds, but it's got a massive amount of information in a short couple of pages, and I would wish everybody could take the advantage of reading that and understanding it. Gets a little bit more clarity to that issue that you're going to be working through in the next couple of months going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. I have nothing this evening. I'll turn it over to the city manager for his comments.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And just with respect to that easement, Councilor Smith, Stacy Belcastro is working on that
thank
now.
you.
I wanted to just also add some commendation to city staff who worked on the city Halloween last week. If you weren't there, you missed a really, really good time, and lots of young people really enjoying themselves. One picture that Matt Harrington took was of Alan Pilgrim tying balloons for little kids up until the very last little Spider-Man left, which was probably around half hour after the end of the scheduled events. And then lastly, as a long-term veteran myself, I've always been very proud of the fact that Albany hosts a Veterans Day parade on an annual basis, even during the pandemic, through the pandemic. And I would encourage you as counselors to come and ride on the trolley. I'll be riding with Jay Bertram and his group of veterans. But again, it's something I think that the city can be very proud of, that they annually host this parade. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I will look forward to seeing you again Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.